Yes guys, I'm Brad here, welcome back to the channel. Of course we're still in this boring international break, so I thought I'd do a bit of different content. And today we're going through all the Premier League transfers from the summer and ranking them on this tier list. As you can see below me, there's 6 tiers, of course, S, A, B, C, D and F. If I spoke about all the transfers, it'd be a hell of a long video, so I'm going to do some in detail, some not. Because some of them are pretty self-explanatory, of course, like backup keepers. Obviously the bigger ones will go more into detail as why I've put them in that tier. As always, if you enjoy this sort of videos, leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. Of course I do general football content on the Premier League, on the Championship, as well as Sheffield United and football shirt content. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button. As you can see, there's a ton of transfers here, so let's just get straight into it. Starting off with Chukwueze to Fulham from AC Milan on loan. I'm going to put him in this C category. He had a bit of form between November and December. He's not been awful for Fulham to be fair, but he's not set the league on fire. So a C is probably about the right region. For Uche, it might be harsh, but I'll put him in F. He's only played a handful of games in the Premier League, not scored a single goal. He scored 2 in the Conference League, one of them a belter to be fair. He's not really contributed to Palace much, so I'm going to put him in F. Reece Nelson's going in F for a similar reason. He's on loan from Arsenal, he's played 7 times in the Premier League. He's got 1 goal, 1 assist in the Carabao, that's about it. So I can't rank him any higher, can I? We're on a run of Fs at the moment, aren't we? Zinchenko, pretty similar reason, played 5 times for Forest. He's not even there anymore, he's at Ajax on loan now somehow. So once again, another bottom tier. Igor Julio to West Ham, another F tier. It was a panic signing on deadline day in the summer, he played 4 times, that's about it. Finally, we've got one that isn't going in F. It's Gertrude from Feyenoord to Sunderland on loan, I'm going for a B. He's played quite a few matches for Sunderland this season, been solid in most of them. And of course, he's played a number of positions as well, including right back, centre back and even midfield. He's not been Sunderland's best signing, but I think he's done enough. So that's why he's going in B. Now Jadon Sancho to Villa's a weird one, isn't he? Of course he's trying to revive his career once again, this time at Aston Villa. He's been alright when I've watched him, but he's not really got many goal involvements. I think an F would be harsh, but I'll put him in D. So I think he's done enough to avoid that bottom tier, but nothing more. Now on to Jack Grealish, of course he's an hard one to rate because of the injuries. He played 22 times for Everton, massively impressed, but of course he's out for the rest of the season. He's in a bit of a limbo with his career right now. Is it enough to revive it, that spell at Everton? I don't know if it's a bit high or a bit low, but I'm going to go B for him. Because of course he was doing well, 2 goals, 6 assists, loved by the fans. So I think it's about fair. For Harvey Elliott, he's going in F, but it's no fault of his own. I mean, somehow he's getting less game time at Villa than he was at Liverpool last season. I mean, the whole reason he left was to get some more game time and be that main man. But it turned out quite the opposite because of that contract clause. Of course, Villa haven't been playing him because they'd have to sign him permanently. So he's stuck in limbo really and surely moves on permanently in the summer. I've just realised I think this is going from lowest to highest transfer fee. So of course we're getting all the loans and the frees out of the way first and not the higher transfers will be at the bottom. Anyway, let's carry on. Randall Cullen-Warney is next. I don't think he's quite in F, but he's not far off. I'm putting him in D because he's showed a little bit, of course a bit in the Champions League. And he's not been very awful, but he hasn't been great either, has he? So he's similar category to Sancho where he's shown a bit but not enough. Next up is Nketiah to Arsenal, and he's been ever so solid, so I'm putting him in A. He did struggle a bit in the Carabao Cup final, but week in, week out in the Premier League, he's looked fairly solid. And of course, he came into an Arsenal team where Calafiori was getting games at left back week in, week out, but he's just stepped into that team and not looked back since. He's been such a brilliant signing for Arsenal, of course, balls of that defence, and it looks like he could be one of the missing jigsaw pieces to win Arsenal that title. For Jordan Henderson, I'm going to put him in B. Look, I think he's been brilliant for Brentford this season, of course, very solid in that midfield, and you only have to take a look at what Brentford are doing this season, of course, contending for Europe. He's been a big part of that, so I think B is a fair category. Let's get some of these moving now. Masuaku going in F. He signed for a free, played 3 games and off to Lens on loan. For Lucas Nmecha, it's a C. He signed on a free, he's got 6 goals, 1 assist in the Premier League. I suppose for a team that leads fighting relegation, it's not bad numbers to be fair. He's obviously not impressed the league as such, but he's not been a failure either. So it's a C for me. Same can be said for Reynildo from Sunderland. I think he's been really solid at left back whenever he's played, he's just not played too much. I believe he's had a couple of injuries, played 18 times in the Premier League. But of them 18 appearances, he's been solid in most of them, so C's about fair. For Axel Tuanzebe, I'm going for a D. Of course, Burnley have struggled massively in defence this season, he's been a part of that. I don't think he's been absolutely shocking, he's had some injuries, so I'm going to cut him some slack. But I think a D is about right. For Benitez of Crystal Palace, he's going in C. He's a solid backup keeper, of course experience. He's had a couple of decent performances in the Carabao Cup and the Conference League. As a backup keeper, he's doing what he needs to, so it's a C. For Victor Lindelof, I'm going for a B. He might be a bit high, but he came in on a free, of course he's been solid in the Europa League. And he's that perfect squad player, what you need, nothing more, nothing less. And when he has played, he's been solid, so I think a B's about right, you know. For Callum Wilson, he's going in D. He had a decent spell of form in November, December time, scored a couple of goals, but that's about it. So I can't really rank him any higher, can I? Kyle Walker-Peters of West Ham, he's also going in D. He's played a handful of Premier League games, been alright, not too great. And of course, he's been benched for Wan-Bissaka under Nuno, so it can't be more than a D. The first one in the S tier for me is Calvert-Lewin. Of course, on a free transfer, has absolutely reignited his career at Leeds. 10 goals in 28 matches, you can't ask for much more than that from a newly promoted team. And his goals may be the reason that Leeds don't get relegated. And of course, he's been recalled to the national team, so I think an S is very valid. Boss Skagli to Brighton is a weird one because he was highly rated in the Netherlands, but he's only played a handful of games in the Premier League, so I think a D is about right. I don't really know why he's not getting more game time because when he's played, he's been decent. I don't know the ins and outs of Brighton, but I'm going to put him in D. Marco Bizzel's going in a similar category towards Benitez. He's done alright when he's played as a backup keeper, what more do you want? For Kyle Walker, he's going in C. He's probably been one of Burnley's better players in the Premier League. He might be a bit past it, but he's performing solid for an average team in the league. I don't think he's quite bottom 2 tiers, so I think a C is about right. For Alex Jimenez of Bournemouth, I'll put him in B. He's quite a solid fullback to be fair, isn't he? Of course, he had a couple couple of mistakes in him, but not too much. And it looks like yet again another decent pickup for Bournemouth. Florentino Luis of Burnley, similar to Walker, they've both stood out a bit in a poor team, nothing more, nothing less. He hasn't necessarily set the league on fire, so it's a C. For Merlin Roll, I'm going for a D. He's only played 12 times, I believe he's had some injuries. He's not quite been awful, but he's not got a goal or assist, so I can't really put him higher, can I? I think Borna Sosa's going in F. I've heard a lot of Crystal Palace fans complain about him, saying he's not that good. He's barely played, I'm going to take their word for it and put him in F. Buonanotte to Chelsea's going in F instantly. He played one time in the Premier League, couple of times in cup competitions, couple of goals, but he went back to Brighton, gone to Leeds, now still not playing, so for me it's an F transfer. For Bertrand Traore, I'm going for a D. He's shown a little bit of glimpses, but not such a lot, and that's probably down to Sunderland, how good their players have been this season. It's not quite a failed transfer, but it's not much more, so I'm going for a D. Douglas Luiz as well, gets a D at Forest. He wasn't bad at Forest when he played, he didn't play much, I think it was more down to the managers. Of course, he's not there anymore, he's on loan at Villa instead. It's not quite an F, but it's nothing more. For Kusi Asare, I'm going for an F. It may seem harsh, as he's only young, but he's not done anything at all, really. I think like 8 games in all competitions, not got a goal or assist, so how can I rank him any higher? Jacob Brun-Larsen's going in F as well, not done much for Burnley. 23 games in the Premier, low average rating and 1 assist, that's it. So once again, how can I rate him higher? But this Vice guy at Burnley, I don't know who he is, he's a backup keeper, I think. I'll chuck him in C because he's played a couple of cup games, I don't really know. It's hard to rank backup keepers, but how can you judge him off of one cup game? The next one's Diego Leon, don't really know why he's on this list. I'll put him in D, he's not quite a failed transfer because he's not in the first team yet, but obviously he hasn't done anything for the first team, so I can't rate him high. For Ramsdale to Newcastle, it's a hard one, we're going for C. Of course, he started as a backup, then Nick Pope got dropped and he got his chance. He's not done awful, but he's not amazing either, so it's a C. Because to be fair, for Newcastle, he's been bog standard. Once again, a backup keeper, Mark Travers, going in C. João Palhinha's a weird one because Spurs have had a weird season. I think I'm going to put him in D, I don't think he's brilliant for them. He's got a couple of goals and assists, but I don't think he's done his basic job properly. But that one I've got wrong, you'll have to let me know in the comments. I believe this next one is Takai at Spurs, of course a young player. Similar to that left back at Man United, he's not played at the first team, so it'd be hard to put him in F, but he's going in D. Kepa's going in D as well, he's been alright, not a great backup keeper. And of course, it definitely cost him the Carabao Cup final. To be fair, I think it's a farce they started that game in the first place. I don't think he's a brilliant keeper, to be honest. Could have been C or D. I'm going to put Bornau of Leeds in D tier as well. He's only played a handful of times, hasn't been good enough really. But it's a D because he hasn't been a complete failure. He's a backup option. Next up is this Cuiabana. I don't really know who he is. He's going in D. He's back out on loan in Brazil. And that's about as much as I know, to be honest. Yasin Elshchan is another one of them where he's going in D. He's another one of them youngsters that went back out on loan after they signed. I can't really judge him just yet, so I think a D is about the right category. John Victor of Nottingham Forest is going in D. He wasn't great when he played for them 5 games in the Prem and some in the Cup. And I think it was that Villa game where he got done from halfway line and pretended to be injured. So I think that's enough to go in D for me. Next up is Fleming of Burnley, who got his loan made permanent. And he's going in B, to be fair, because he's been solid for them, 8 goals in the Premier League. And without them goals, they'll probably have about half the points they have now. Adam Masner of Everton going in F. He's not played a single minute in the Premier League, only 1 cup game against Sunderland. The reason as to why I don't know, but he's going in F because he hasn't played. And that's about all I can say for that one. James Justin of Leeds is going in C tier. They got him on a free, of course he's a backup, he's played a few games. And he's been alright, to be fair, so I think a C is about fair in the middle. Once again with Burnley, another loan made permanent, this time Antony. Of course 7 goals, 1 assist in the Premier League, similar contribution to Fleming. And similar reasoning to Fleming, they'd probably be about half the points if they didn't have him. Another youth signing, this time Kendrick Paez. He went to Chelsea, I don't know much about him, so he's going in D. He hasn't played for Chelsea's main team yet, so I can't put him any higher or lower. Next up is Marcus Edwards at Burnley, he's probably going in D. He's a very average player, he's not done much for them this season, so I think a D is probably about right. The next signing is Hartman at Burnley, I'm going to put him in C. I think he's been alright when he's played, but he's not played a lot for some reason. Maybe he's not a favourite with Scott Parker, but I've heard from Burnley fans he's decent when he plays. Next up is Robin Roofs, I put him in S tier. He's been Sunderland's best signing in my opinion, he's been absolutely fantastic. He's arguably been one of the best keepers in the league this season, so why would he not be in S tier? I mean, he only cost them something like 10 million, what a bargain that is. For Coppola, I don't know much about him, he's out on loan at the moment. He's going in F because he played 5 times, then he went back out on loan to Paris FC, so I mean, it can't mean that good a signing, so he's going in F. Next up is another youth player that's gone out on loan, of course Luka Vuskovic. He's going in D like the other ones because they haven't played much for the club yet, so it's hard to rank him too high or too low. For Goodmanson of Leeds, I'm putting him in B. He's really impressed me as a left back whenever I've seen him play for Leeds, and he's been a solid signing for them, so I think B's about right. Now Alderete, I was umming and ahhing between A and S, I'm going to put him in A. Only reason I put him in A, not S, is I don't think he's been the best signing, but my god, he's been brilliant in that backline alongside Dan Ballard, and he's been part of that very solid Sunderland defence. For Christian Norgard to Arsenal, he's going in C. It was quite a weird one at the time, to be fair, because he's a backup in the Arsenal squad. He's not played much in the Premier League, but of course he's been decent enough in the Cups, so I think a C is about the right range. For David Muller-Wolf, I'm going for a D. He's been struggling for game time the last few weeks, hasn't really impressed when he's played for Wolves, and although his name is absolutely perfect for Wolves, I just can't give him more than a D. Another Sunderland signing, this time Nordi Mukiele, and once again alongside Alderete, he's going in that A category. He's been fantastic in that back line, primarily at right back, and it was just another well-worked signing for Sunderland in the summer. For Jair Cunha, I'll put him in D. He's only played a handful of times for Nottingham Forest, hasn't been brilliant. He's had a couple of injury problems, but he hasn't really played much, so I can't put him higher. For Chachua, I'm going for a C. Whenever I've watched him for Wolves, he's been decent, of course, in that right wing-back spot. He might not be the best player, but he looks lively all the time I watch him, so I think about in the middle is fair. Similar can be said for Savona at Forest. He was having a solid season, to be fair, in that first half. Of course, he's injured for the rest of the season now, but he was playing the majority of the games in that Forest team, a couple of goals to show for it. An overall solid half season from him. For Adrian Truffert, I'm going for an A again. Of course, when Bournemouth lost Kirkhead in the summer, it's a massive task to replace him. But you've got to say they definitely fulfilled that task. He's been much better, Truffert, in my opinion. He's not quite an S tier signing, but he's definitely A tier. For Short and Longstaff, he's going in B as well as Goodmanson. Similar to Goodmanson, he's been solid for him. Couple of goals, couple of assists. And on a free, you can't complain about that involvement at all. For Bashir Humphries, I'll put him in C. He's probably been one of Burnley's better defenders. He's looked alright. He's only a youngster still, obviously. I don't think he's worthy of D and F, so I think C's about right. For Mamadou Sarr of Chelsea, I'm going to put him in D. He hasn't played enough yet. He was on loan at Strasbourg in the first half of the season, of course, come back in January. He's only played a handful of games, so I can't really judge him too much. For Queeman Kelleher, I'm going for A tier. He's been a brilliant signing for Brentford, an improvement of Flecken in my opinion. And of course, after leaving Liverpool, he needed somewhere to be the main man. He's definitely that at Brentford. And he's got 8 clean sheets, which is fairly solid, so I definitely think he's A tier. For Miller Savlovic, I'm going to put him in D. I don't know if I pronounced that right or wrong, let me know in the comments. He's only played a few times with Bournemouth, he's only young still, so I can't put him lower or higher. For Granit Xhaka, he's going in S tier. He's probably been Sunderland's best signing this season. He's so important to how they play. And of course, for a newly promoted club like Sunderland, it's a massive coup. And he's having a brilliant time at Sunderland, so I think an S tier is fair. For Charlie Alcaraz, he's going in D. Since joining permanently at Everton, he's not played too much. I think he's had a couple of injury problems, hasn't provided too much when he has played. So I think D tier is definitely right for him. Next up is Ferre Naipan to City. Once again, like the other youngsters, he's going in D because he hasn't played much. Of course, he had that low spell at Middlesbrough, cut short in January because he wasn't playing such a lot. He hasn't made his debut for City's first team yet, so it's a D. For Mosquera, I'm going to put him in C. He's been a solid backup for Arsenal. I mean, he's only young still, of course he cost about 10-15 million, I believe. I mean, in this day and age, that's a massive bargain, so it's a good deal for Arsenal, it's a C. For Loum Shuana, he's going in D. Once again, I could have butchered that pronunciation, apologies if I have. He's played 23 matches with Burnley, only got 1 goal, nothing to show for really. So I think a D tier is pretty self-explanatory. Another D, this time for Lucas Perez. I mean, if you're somehow Meslier levels are bad at league, you've done something wrong. Of course, he's now been dropped for Carl Darlow of all people, so it's a D. I'm going to give a D to Magassa as well. He's played a handful of times for West Ham, he hasn't really impressed, but he's only young, so I'm going to put him D. I think I'm going to put Noah Siddiqui in B tier. He's been solid for him, I don't think he's been as good as some of the other signings, but he has been a really good player in that midfield, and of course he's only young, so he will develop well. So I think a B tier for now is fair. John Arias of Wolves is going straight in F. He played a decent amount of times before he left in January, of course 1 Premier League goal, that's it. And like I mentioned, he's already left the club permanently, so I think it's straight F. I'm putting Michael Kayode in B tier. Of course, he made that loan move permanent in the summer. Of course, he's mainly known for his long throws. He's a solid player otherwise. I don't think he's quite top 2 tiers, so I think B's about fair. I'm going to put Jakob Biel in C tier. Of course, he mainly came to the team when they started playing that 3-at-the-back system. He's been solid ever since, but he's only played about half a season roughly. But he has been solid, so I'm going to put him in C tier. I think same can be said about Noah Okafor, because he's only played about half the season. He scored 4 goals, which isn't awful, but he's not brilliant at the same time. I think he's had a bit more impact on and off the ball, so I'm going to give him a C. I think similar can be said about Igor Jesus as well. He's going in C because he's only scored 3 goals, 3 assists, which isn't awful. But I think like Okafor, he does a lot more off the ball that doesn't get noticed in the stats. So I think C tier in the middle is about right. I'm on a run with C's at the moment. I'm going to put Talby in there as well. Similar to the others, he's got a few goals and assists, but nothing too impressive. I mean, he got the equaliser against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago. That's probably S tier for a lot of Sunderland fans. He's still quite young, so he's got plenty of time to develop. But I think based on the season so far, it's a C. Now Anton Stack of Leeds, I'm going for a B. He's been impressive whenever I watched him. Of course, a good few goals and assists. And he makes that Leeds midfield tick quite a lot, so I think he's a decent player. So similar to Goodmanson and Longstaff, it's a B. For Maxime de Kuyper, I'm putting him in D. I don't think he's shown his best at Brighton so far. He's struggling for game time at the moment. I thought he would do well in the Premier League, but he's struggled a lot at the moment, so I'm giving him a D. For Malambo, I'm going for a D as well. I don't really know too much about him. I think Brentford signed him for a decent amount of money. And of course, he's only played 3 times in all competitions, so I can't recommend higher. Do you know what? I'm going to put Brian Brobby in A tier. I think his hold-up play is so underrated in the Premier League and in that Sunderland squad. And you've seen it a couple of times. He just holds the ball up so well for that Newcastle goal and the Chelsea goal a few months ago. I just think he's a brilliant striker and he's got a lot more to come in his Sunderland career. For Matt Hermanson, it might be harsh, but he's going in D tier. It's been a bit better recently, but of course the start of the season was absolutely honking. I don't think he's done enough yet to get any higher, so it's a D. Senna Lamans, I'm putting B tier. I think he's a really good keeper for the price. Of course, Man United, especially recently, have had a bit of a revelation. He's been a big part of that. And I think he's got plenty of room to develop. He could be their number 1 for years. For Amin Adli, I'm going for a C tier. I think he's been solid whenever I've watched him. He's not got many goals and assists he probably wants. But like I've mentioned for some other players, I think his game is more than goals and assists. He's a solid player, nothing more, nothing less, so it's C tier. I'm going to go C tier for Malik Diouf as well. He had a really good start to the season, but of course he dropped off a bit recently. He's not an awful player, but I don't see him as a top player like he was at the start of the season. He could have gone in B, he could have gone in C. I've decided to go for C. For Asugo, I'm going to put him in D. He's only played 1 time for Chelsea this season, got 2 assists in that game to be fair. Of course, I think he had an injury at the start of the season, which ruled him out for a lot of the season. So D tier is about fair. I can't rank him too much higher or lower. For Krejci, I'm putting him in C. I think he's been one of Wolves' better signings. He's not a brilliant player, but he's decent whenever I've seen him. And of course, an important player for the Czech Republic as well, so I think a C is about fair. For JD Canvot, I'm putting him in C as well. He's been really good these last few games, especially in the absence of Mark Guehi. If he'd have been on this form all season, he could definitely be B or even A. But I think because he's only played about half the season, he's going in C. For Fer Lopez, he's going in F, back out on loan again now. Like I mentioned, he played 12 times, then he's back out on loan, so I can't give him any higher. In them 12 games, he got 1 assist, that literally is quite a poor signing. Speaking of poor signings, Amanda Broya is going in F as well. I genuinely don't see what Premier League team's seen him anymore to spend 20 million on him. Yes, he's been riddled with injuries, but I think he's a poor striker anyway, and I don't think he's been anything good for Burnley, to be honest. I'm putting Enzo Lafitte in the B category. He's been really solid this season. Of course, when he was injured, Sunderland have missed him. Of course, 4 goals, 4 assists, which is solid for a newly promoted club. Of course, he was solid in the Championship last year, carried that into the Premier League. For Gannon Doak, I'm putting him in D. He only played 5 matches in the Premier League, got injured on international duty, so it'd be harsh to put him in F considering he hasn't played much, so he's going in D. I'm going to put Simon Adingra in D as well. He scored 1 goal in his time at Sunderland over 15 matches. I don't think he was awful enough to put him in F, but he's going in D. And of course now he's out on loan at Monaco, so I don't know what's happened there. For Kevin Danzo, he's going in C. I think he's really underappreciated. He's a solid defender as a backup. And of course Romero's been sent off about 6 times this season, so he had to cover for him then. Overall, when he's played, I think he's been quite solid in this poor Tottenham team. For James McAtee, it hurts to say, but he's going in F. I absolutely love him as a player. He's not done much at Forest, of course hasn't had much game time, and I think he'll probably want that moves on again in the summer. For Ara Kodare, he's going in C. He was in between D or C for me. I put him in C because he's got a couple of goals, and I think he's a striker. Even if he doesn't score, he creates nuisance for defenders, so that's why he's just about in that C category. For Strand Larsen to Wolves, he's going in the B category because it's a pure profit. Of course, he signed on a permanently in the summer for about 25 million, went to Palace in January for 50 million. He didn't do much for Wolves at the start of the season, but to double your money that quick is just impressive, so I think he's got to go in the B tier for that alone. For Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, he's going in the A category. He's been really impressive for Everton this season, 6 goals, 3 assists, and I've got to say he's definitely flourishing in an environment where he's more of a main man, because of course he was solid for Chelsea last season, but he's only playing Conference League really. But at Everton he's definitely thriving, so it's an A. The next one is Ugo Chukwu to Burnley. I'm giving him a C. He's one of them, he's in the middle, he hasn't been a complete flop for Burnley, he's not been brilliant either. He's an average player to be fair, so he's going in C. For Petrovic to Bournemouth, I'm going for a B. He's got 9 clean sheets for Bournemouth, which is quite impressive for a team like them, and he's been really solid for him to be fair, not quite top 2 tiers, but a definite B. Next up is Tierno Barry. I'm going to put him in C. He's got 6 goals to be fair, which isn't awful in the Premier League, but of course he's been benched a lot of the season for Beto. He's only coming off the bench in certain games, and he's been average. He's not quite a D, but I think he's a C. Another failed Forest transfer, I'm going to put Kelly Wendo in F. He only played 9 times in the Premier League, no goals, only a couple of goals in Europe. He's now on loan at Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, where he's doing alright, so it's an F. I think the same can be said about Evan Gessan to Villa, to be fair. Of course he signed in the summer, only got a couple of goals in all competitions, now he's at Palace on loan, so in terms of his transfer to Villa in isolation, it's an F. Speaking of Palace, we've got Yeremy Pino next, and he's going in D because for the money he signed for, he's been quite average. I think it was a club record fee for him, he's only got a couple of goals in the Premier League, a couple of other competitions as well, but for the price tag you'd be wanting more, so I'm going to put him in D. I'm going to put Donnarumma to City in A. I mean, a world-class keeper like that for the price he's signing for is a definite bargain, and he's been quite solid, 11 clean sheets in the Premier League, made some impressive saves. I don't think it's quite S tier because Man City aren't going to win the league, but he's definitely A tier for sure. Leone to Liverpool's going in D. Of course he was a young player, signed more for the future. He got that ACL injury in the Carabao Cup, ruling him out for the rest of the season, so he's one of them. He's not a failure, but also I can't rank him too much higher. For James Trafford, he's going in C. Of course he was signed originally as City's number 1, he looked alright in the first few Premier League games, and then of course they signed Donnarumma. He's been on the bench ever since, he's been the cup keeper, but to be fair they won the Carabao Cup with him in the net, so I think a C's fair. I'm going to put Habib Diarra in C. Of course Sunderland's record sign, he's been alright, a bit injured. Like I mentioned, he's only played about half the season because of a couple of injuries, but he's been solid when he has played, probably could have been B or maybe even A if he had played more, but I think with the game time considered it's a C. I'm going to put Esteval in the C tier as well. He might be a bit harsh, but he's only young, he's not exactly set the league on fire as such. He's been solid for his age, but he hasn't really played every single game. If he'd have played a bit more and done a bit more, it could have been a B or an A, but he's got plenty of time ahead of him. For Kostoulis at Brighton, I put him in D. I don't know too much about him, he's got a couple of goals and assists, but he's been struggling with game time as of late, so he can't be that good. But like I mentioned, he's only young, so that's to be expected. For Malik Chow, he's going in the A tier. I don't think he's quite S tier, but has been a solid signing this season, because he's been that shining light in that Newcastle defence, been underperforming a bit, and I think that's the only reason he's not in the S tier. For Delane Backward of Forest, I'm going for an F. I mean, he's played 17 games in all competitions, 1 assist, no goals, I think. And for the money he's signing for as well, he's been quite poor, so I just can't see how it's not an F. For Diakite of Bournemouth, I'm going for a D. He started the season off fairly solid, but of course James Hill has come in and took his place, and the last few games he's been sitting on the bench, hasn't even come on, so I can't really rank him any higher than a D. I'm also giving a D to Matthias Tell. After that loan spell last season, I don't really know why they signed him permanently. He didn't really pull up any trees, he hasn't done that either this season. I mean, he's looked quite poor whenever I've watched him to fair, so he's going in D. For Liam Delop, I'm going in F. He's been quite poor on her. I mean, he's only scored 1 goal in the Premier League, he's had enough appearances, and I mean, other competitions as well, he's only got 1 or 2. He's been a complete flop for Chelsea, one of the worst signings of the season. For Cherki, I'm going to put him in his B tier. It feels like he's had limited game time, but still got 3 goals, 8 assists in the Premier League, and he's such a quality player, and of course the technical ability he has is unreal, and some of the stuff he does on the pitch, of course I think that Rabona assist early in the season, I mean that's just one of many examples. Overall he's a brilliant player, he's going in B. For Ait Nouri, he's going in C. Of course he was struggling for game time in the early parts of the season, but he's coming recently and been solid. He's a brilliant left back to be fair, and of course when he's on his game he's one of the best in the league. If he'd have played the full season he'd probably be in B, but I think C's about right. For Kevin, I'm going for a D. I think it was very close between D and F. I'm going to be a bit kind on this one, he showed a little bit, so I'm going to put him in D. But I mean, for the money that Fulham paid, they'd want a lot more from him. I'm going to put Jean-Claude Todibo Tebow in D. I think recently he's been a bit better. Of course, at the start of the season he was quite poor, so I've got to take that into consideration when I'm choosing this. I just can't justify putting him in C with some of the other players there, so he's probably just about a D. I'm going to put Jeremy Frimpong in D as well. In terms of the expectations, people thought he'd do a lot better. Maybe recently he's been a bit better, of course playing with a wing position, but at the start of the season he was quite poor. Of course Liverpool have been quite poor all season. Maybe he could be a C, but I'm going to put him in D for this. For Tyler Diblin, he's going straight in F. Of course 17 games in the Premier League, no goal involvement. It's not even got a goal involvement in the Cup either. He's not got as much game time. I think he went for too much money. I mean, I don't think he were worth anywhere near 40-50 million. I think Everton have got a really bad deal there, so I think it's an F. I'm going to put Dan Ndoye in D. He's been alright for Forest, but hasn't done too much. Of course Forest are massively struggling as a team. There's few individuals that are standing out. He's not one of them, so I think a D's about right. I'm going to put Dango Utara in B. I think he's a brilliant player. He's got 5 goals, 3 assists in the Premier League, and them assists don't take into account the penalties that he's won throughout the season. Because he's a very smart player with his body, gets in the way of the defender, and that gives the defender no choice but to foul them. Overall, I think he's a brilliant player and a big reason why Brentford are where they are. For Amari Hutchinson, it's just about going in D. A few games ago he'd have gone in F, but I think he's been a bit better recently. I still don't think he's been a brilliant signing, wasn't worth the money, but he's been alright recently. So taking that into account, it's a D. For Mateus Fernandes, he's going in B. He's been quality for West Ham. He's a brilliant midfielder for this level. I know Southampton got relegated, but 40 million is a brilliant deal for this guy, because I think he could easily go for double that. Of course, 3 goals, 3 assists, a good average rating on FotMob. And whenever I've watched West Ham this season, he's definitely stood out. For Jarell Hato, I'm going to put him in D. He's been alright for Chelsea, nothing more, nothing less. But he has struggled for game time. Only really played under Rosenior. He's not necessarily stood out, so I think a D's about fair. I think Jacob Ramsey gets a D. He's not been brilliant for Newcastle, especially for the money paid. I don't think he's anything special. He's an average player. I don't know why he went for that money. He's done alright in some games for Newcastle, but more than not, he's average. So I'm going to put him in D. For Garnacho, I'm going to put him in C. Look, I don't think he's a brilliant player, but I don't think he's done awful this season. Of course, 7 goals, 4 assists isn't bad. Whether he's worth the money that Chelsea paid, I don't know, but he's been alright. I think it'd be harsh to put him D or F, so I think C's about right. I think Milos Kerkez gets a C as well. First half of the season, I think he really struggled, but he seems to have adapted a bit now. And in the last few weeks, he's been decent for Liverpool, nothing more. So I think a C in the middle is about fair. For Tierney Rangers, I'm going for a C. It's a weird one, this one. Because of course he's got a good few goals and assists for Man City when he's played. But their midfield seems to work better without him. He's struggling for game time at the moment. Like for example, the Cup final a couple of weeks ago didn't even come on. But he's been solid to be fair, so I want to put him in C. Madueke, he's had a similar season to Rangers. He's going in C. Of course the difference with Madueke, he knew he was going to be signed as a backup. But when he has played, he's been decent to fair. A couple of goal involvements and a few in the Cups. And he's been a solid backup to Saka, so it's a C. For Jamie Gittins, he's going in F. I don't know what people see in him. I think he's quite poor, to be honest. He's not worth the money at all, because he's only got a couple of assists and a couple of goals in all competitions, and I think he's been quite poor, so it's an F. I think same can be said about Visser, to be fair. Of course he got that injury as soon as he signed, that ruled him out of half the season, and he's only scored once since he came back, so I just don't think he's been a good signing at all. And of course there's been some speculation, will he be here next season? I don't know if he'll be at Newcastle. And of course he liked that Instagram post, Sunderland celebrating the derby, which I thought was a bit odd. So I think on and off the pitch it's an F. I think for the money they paid as well, Langer's an F. He's been quite poor as well. Of course he got 2 goals against Barcelona somehow, but apart from that he's only got 1 assist I think, and he's been quite poor. Of course 1 assist, no goals in the Premier League, so I just don't know how it can go any higher. To be honest with you, I think João Pedro's S tier. He's been so good for Chelsea this season. Of course 14 goals, 5 assists in the Premier League alone. Of course Chelsea have struggled this season, but he's got 21 goals, 6 assists in all competitions, and he's been brilliantly in that line. He's such a good striker, so I think I'm justified in putting him in S tier. I'm going to put Kudus in C tier, but I think he's lucky. First half of the season he was brilliant, of course 2 goals, 5 assists, but I mean he's been injured since January and dropped off a little bit beforehand, so I think that first half of the season definitely saves him. I think he returns from injury after the international break, but interested to see if he can help Tottenham stay up. Of course Javi Simmons is another weird one as well. He's shown glimpses of quality, but over the season I think he's been quite poor. To say he was signed for 60-70 million, he's not really shown that, and overall I just don't think he's been up to the standard, so I think he's going in D. For Victor Gyökeres, I'm going in B. He started the season quite poor, but he has picked up a bit recently. Of course still 11 goals in the Prem, and like I mentioned, the last few weeks he actually looks a lot better, more like a striker. He seems to be taking more chances, getting more goals. I think it'd be very harsh to put him in C, so I'm going for B. For Eze, I'm going for a C. He has played alright at times, but I think he's struggled for game time. I mean he's got 6 goals in the Prem, I think 5 against Tottenham. He's done alright in the Prem and the Cups, I think it's about a C. I think Zubimendi's in S tier, and I've got to say he's completely revolutionised Arsenal's midfield. I think he was that missing piece of the jigsaw to win them the Premier League and potentially the Champions League, and I think the balance in midfield has been perfectly struck now they've signed him. So if that isn't the definition of S tier, then what is? I think Mateus Cunha's good in the A tier. It was very close to being S, but I thought it was A in the end. I mean he's been brilliant for Man United, of course 7 goals, 2 assists, and like I mentioned with a couple of other players, them assists don't include penalties won, because I think he's won a good couple of penalties. I know there was one at Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, and some of his finishes have been brilliant. There was one against Aston Villa a few weeks ago. I mean he just received the pass, of course opened his body up and put it bottom corner. Overall I think he's been a top tier signing for Man United. I'm going to put in Burmo in A as well, and to be fair he's had a pretty similar season to Cunha. Of course 9 goals, 3 assists in the Prem, and of course he's looked quality as well with Cunha in that attack. Of course he was brilliant at Brentford and he's definitely transferred that to Man United as well. He's not quite S tier in my opinion, but I think he's definitely A tier. For Sesko it might be harsh, but I'm going for C tier. Of course course, he struggled to get off the mark at the start of the season. He's been better recently, and he seems to be a brilliant super sub at the moment. That just needs to translate to starts now. If we were going off recent form, it'd probably be B or an A, but I think you've got to take the whole season into account, so it's a C. I'm going to put Nick Voltemade in C as well. He should be higher in this list, but I think he's been misprofiled by Newcastle. I mean, they're just not really playing to his strengths at all, are they? He started the season so well, but then he dropped off a bit and he's been playing different positions. I mean, why are you playing Voltemade in midfield? It doesn't make sense. So I think he's unlucky not to be higher in my opinion. On to the big three now. Of course, Liverpool's big signings. The first one being Ekitike, who's going in B. I think he's been quality, of course. 11 goals, 4 assists, I believe. And he's got a few more goals and assists in the cup competitions as well. Of course, we'll talk about Isak in a minute, but I think after signing Ekitike, they didn't need him. And I think at the moment, it's definitely Ekitike's spot to lose. I've got to say, Florian Wirtz's an hard one. I'm going to say, I think he's been quite good, and a lot of people hate on him for no reason. Yes, he's got a big price tag. Maybe he's not lived up to it fully, but I think he's been solid. The other thing keeping him in C, like I mentioned, is that price tag. I don't think he's been as bad as people make out, but you'd want a bit more for 115 million. So that's why I put him in C. The final player, of course, the biggest of the summer is Isak. He's not quite F. I think he was showing a bit of something before his injury. It'd be harsh to rank him in F considering he's been missing half the season. And like I mentioned, just before he got injured, he was getting a bit of momentum. And you've got to remember, he literally got injured scoring a goal at Tottenham. I don't think he'd have done enough over the season if he didn't get injured. All of these things are in hindsight, but I'm going to put him in D because of his injury. And there we go, guys. That's all 152 summer transfers ranked. As you can see on the screen now, these are the D and F transfers. And then you've got the transfers here from C all the way to S. I think I've got most of these spot on, to be honest. I think some are up for contention though. So you'll have to let me know in the comments if you've got this far in the video who you'd change. As always, guys, if you enjoy this sort of content, leave this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to go and follow my socials as well, my X, my Instagram, and my TikTok. Of course, I post way more football content in short form over on them pages, so if you want to see that as well, then go drop them a follow. And I'll see you guys in the next one.